Welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. It's my job to take the guesswork out of beekeeping for you in the wintertime. Today I'm going to be going over 3 different tips for you so that you can winter your bees with success. So stick around. It's no secret that in beekeeping we're always having to prepare our bees for something, and that the seasons kind of guide what that something is. But probably the biggest thing that we've got to prepare our bees for is going to be the winter time, to make sure they've got enough food in order to get through the winter so that we can see them as happy, healthy, thriving bees in the springtime when we do our first spring hive inspection. There's lots of do's and don'ts when it comes to getting your bees ready for winter. Today I'm going to be giving you 3 tips so that you can get your bees ready and have a little bit more clarity on the subject. So tip number 1, you need to not feed your bees a pollen supplement. That is a winter no-no, and the reason for that is simple. Nature only provides pollen for so long, and then a frost comes along and it stops that pollen production and it stops that incoming source of pollen into the hive. The bees need that pollen source to come to an end because it tells the queen when to slow down her egg laying rate. If we as beekeepers come along and give them a pollen patty, then it's going to tell the queen that she can continue laying eggs. And unfortunately, that's going to give the hive and the colony more mouths to feed through the wintertime, and they may not have the stores to do so. So when nature stops feeding the bees pollen, we need to observe that in our area and know also to not continue giving the bees a pollen substitute. The queen needs to slow down her egg laying rate so that the colony can manage their population according to the food that they have to get through the wintertime. Tip number 2, you must work your colonies down into winter management level. In other words, a certain amount of boxes. The bees cannot have too many boxes to go through winter in. I've made the mistake of keeping bare frames, bare undrawn frames in my hives through the winter. The reason you don't want to have bare frames in your colonies or empty boxes, because that's going to be more room that they're going to have to keep warm, which means it's going to take extra energy and more of the bees' life force, if you will. I recommend, depending on your location, you're going to have to look more into this for yourself, but wintering your hives either in single deeps, double deeps, or 1.5s, which is going to be a single deep with a medium honey super on top. And all of these, no matter what the configuration is that you choose for your area, it needs to be packed with honey. There shouldn't be any empty spaces, no undrawn frames, and remember, no empty boxes. The bees need only the amount of space that they can afford to warm and keep warm through the wintertime. And finally, tip number 3, wintertime is not the time to feed your bees sugar syrup or whatever you use. It's important that you feed the bees for winter before winter. They need to have their frames full of honey or a mixture of honey and sugar syrup during the fall before winter comes. The reason for preparing your bees for winter by feeding them in the fall before winter and not feeding them through the winter is simple. Once the temperatures outside get to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, the bees begin to cluster. The colony will create a tighter and tighter ball depending on what the temperature is. As the temperature drops, they have a tighter and tighter cluster as much as possible, and they shiver their wings to create a ball of warmth. The center is the hottest, the next part is still nice and warm, and then the outer part has got some cool temperatures to it, but it's still warm enough for the bees to stay alive. In fact, they take turns rotating through this cluster, the winter cluster. But it's too cold for the bees to break that cluster in order to crawl down or over to wherever your feeder is. So your feeder jar is just going to sit there full of feed anyways, and they're not going to be able to get to it unless you've got one of those freak warm days during the winter, which does occasionally happen. But if your bees don't have enough feed on them in the wintertime, then it's kind of already too late to get the weight on them that they're going to need. And I'm going to throw in one more bonus tip for the wintertime. When it comes to checking out your bees during the winter, just to see how they're doing, of course, don't touch the hives. Don't even bump them. Any little knock or bump that you do is going to alert the hive. And when that happens, they begin to burn calories. And when the bees burn calories, they need to replace those calories by eating their winter stores. So they need to remain primarily undisturbed so that their winter stores last and that they are calm throughout the winter. They kind of go into like this dormant state that they will get through winter with. And ideally, if you have a cold enough winter and ideal circumstances where they're undisturbed, they'll have a lot of their food left over in the springtime that they're going to need to get them through until incoming nectar and pollen are offered again as things begin to bud and bloom. So those are 3 tips plus 1 equals 4. Let me know how you winter your bees wherever you're located in the comments below. Drop me one of these, and don't forget to tell your friends about the Hive Doctor. I'll see you in the next video.